We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Good evening, welcome to nufc Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Supermac and Gibbo join me this Thursday. Good evening, lads.
Good evening.
Hi, Steve. Good evening. Hi, John.
Good to see you. John's looking very festive with his tinsel hanging up, and Malcolm with one of his many awards behind him there on the mantelpiece, I'm sure. We're ready to get stuck into Newcastle United's exit from the Champions League last night to AC Milan. No disgrace, Malcolm, in the group of death, it has to be said. Finished bottom, as many pundits had predicted, but we gave it a good go. 4 points off PSG is something which is memorable. Going to Milan and getting a point, I think we will also classify as a good result. But I think, ultimately the two games against Dortmund, a loss at home and a loss away, and then the way that we lost last night, the reason that we're dumped out not only of the Champions League but also dumped out of Europe, Malcolm.
Yeah, the way the game was last night, I think it absolutely expressed the troubles and the problems that Newcastle are facing right now in injuries and the lack of being able to spend money in the transfer market. And when you think that 35 minutes from the end of the match, Newcastle United, along with Borussia Dortmund, they were in qualified places, and because of shortage of numbers over the next little while, Newcastle, they were only able to put on 3 subs, and they were subs who were returning from injury. This was their first games each, coming back from injury, and yet the Italians, they were able to put on 7 subs, all fresh legs, and those fresh legs, I think they did for Newcastle. And there was a classic example where they had a 3-against-2 breakaway towards the end, and Newcastle, you could see the players who were trying to chase back, and they were literally treading in sand the way that they were running, and that they had just given everything physically, and there was nothing left in their tanks at all. And so I do feel also that this FFP business, that if a club should qualify for the Champions League, then they should get special dispensation and allowed to spend more money than under normal circumstances. But well, that's a different issue. But I thought that everybody did magnificently last night. They've done brilliantly right the way through the competition. It's great experience, fabulous experience for everybody, and and it was called the Group of Death, and it lived up to that name without any word of exaggeration. And I think that we can all be very proud indeed of the way that the team and all the individual players have performed. But I think now, we've got to remember we're still in 2 cup competitions. There are still plenty available to win. So we need to absolutely regroup, refocus, and we've got some very important games coming up before the end of the year. Very important.
John, your take?
Not the same. I feel that we were desperately unlucky. Of course, we were not talking about the game, the whole campaign. In terms of injuries, we've had between 10, 13 and 14 players not available regularly, game after game recently. Yes, we had the atrocious look in Paris with a penalty in the 98th minute, which was never a penalty, and those 2 points would have made a huge difference. And yes, in the opening 45 minutes last night, we were absolutely terrific. I thought we're back home, where we're loved, where the crowd's energy and the war flags gives us so much more in our legs to go at them. Having said all that, I think we were absolutely naive in the extreme. I look at our group, it's called the Group of Death, quite rightly so. But to me, looking at them, we had 3 clubs that were streetwise, and we had us, the new boys on the block, gung-ho, let's get at them, let's be fun, let's go at them, etc., etc. You look at the teams we were playing, Milan's, every one of them has appeared in the European Champions League final. Milan's won it 7 times. Dortmund's won it. PSG have been in a final. We are the new kids on the block. I think we were naive. I really think all right. We were suddenly caught out, and we weren't going to get in it 1-1, and we weren't perhaps going to get in the Champions League, and we're chasing it desperately, etc., etc. But at that stage, we were still in Europe. We were still in the Europa Cup, going into the last 10 minutes. Now, if you're clever at that stage, you manage that situation. If you have game management, you manage that situation, and you hold on to what you've got. What do we do on the winning goal? Shaw loses the ball, tries to play a clever 1-2 in their penalty area, 10 yards from their goal. They recycle the ball, stick it in where he should have been as a centre half, and we're out of Europe completely in that one move. And I tell you what, nothing new. We did it against Liverpool up here. Against Liverpool with 10 minutes to go, we're 1-0 up in the only Premier League game we've lost at home. We're 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go. We've got 11 men against 10. And we'll go from 1-0 up to losing 2-1. And the 2 goals are scored by a sub. When we play elite sides, and it is different. I'm being harsh, but I'm being truthful, because Newcastle have got to face us, and this is the way it is. We have jumped from being bottom of the league. We've got to get rid of that mentality. We are now in the top of the league situation, the top 4, the top 6, the top 7, and it's a different life. And if we don't learn quickly, it will be like this regularly. We didn't manage the situation whatsoever last night. And the only time we've been done at home in the league was against an elite club, Liverpool. Now, we've played in the Champions League. We've lost 2 or 3 home games, and we are supposed to be invincible at home. We're not away. We've lost to Bournemouth away. We've lost to Everton away. We lost to Spurs recently away. But my consolation going into the game last night was we're at home. And the crowd's terrific, and we are terrific, and we've got good energy, and we so want to win, and everything's a plus. And it was like that for so long, and I feel awful saying anything against that. But I feel I've got to tell the truth the way I see it. We have got to learn. We were naive last night and next week. Do you think Milan's is naive? Or do you think, you see, and people say to me, and Eddie said after the game, well, it's not the Newcastle ways to attack. We attack and we try to win games, etc. And that is lovely, and that is what I want to see. But there seems to be a misapprehension that if you're an attacking team, you let them in at the back. And if you're not an attacking team, you must be a defensive team and put loads of players along your 18-yard line and throw the ball to them and let them have a go. That is not so. Football is much more about the grey areas than the black and white areas. Forgive the pun, I'm not talking about Newcastle, where you either are an attacking side, so you can't defend, or you're a defensive side, which can't attack. The clever sides do both. Paisley did both. Clough did both. Ferguson and Wenger, when they were winning things, did both. Clever sides do both. You've got to be able to defend as well as attack. And when you've got something to hold on to, like you're 1-0 up against Liverpool with 10 minutes to go, 11 against 10, and you're 1-1 and in Europe still in our... And by the way, if we continued and played correctly, who's to say we wouldn't have still scored the next goal and won 2-1 last night? But I look at the side and I look at our midfield. We need a number 6. We didn't. Our midfield, I thought I was watching a match, a schoolboy match in the schoolyard.
Didn't we sign one off Milan?
Sorry?
Didn't we sign one off Milan?
What, a schoolboy player or a good
number
player?
6.
Well, he didn't look like a number 6 when I saw him in the fleeting time I saw him. And by the way, nobody in our... We have got good midfield players, Steve. If you think of Willock and you think of Anderson, who's out, you think of the 2 Brazilians who are current Brazilian internationals, you think of Longstaff, you think of Miley, who's going to be absolutely terrific. You know what? How many have I named there? And we haven't got one defensive midfield player outside of possibly Longstaff who has got anything in his head that sees danger and will play. We will chase the ball. Bruno is a fabulous player, but he hasn't got the discipline to play defensively in the centre. I thought we got sucked into holes and out of positions, and then I thought they were clever in the most cynical way. The foul, they stopped the game, they messed it up, they fouled people, they ruffled their hair and picked them up, when really they're just absolutely... And we fell for that. And we haven't got a midfielder who can be disciplined in his thinking. Everybody hasn't got to play like Jenky Smith, for goodness sake. If you haven't got the defensive midfield player, you're in trouble.
I'll tell you why we haven't won the last 3 games, John, because we haven't scored goals. We haven't put the chances away. 2 chances last night. Almiron should have buried that. That would have been 1-0 to Newcastle. We would have been 2-0 up with Joe Linton. Game over. Game over. I think Newcastle win that game. I think
we've also, Steve, conceded 9 goals in the 3 games, mate.
I know I have, and that's since Dubravka came in.
I tell you what, that takes some doing winning games when you concede 9 and 3.
But you know yourself, you've watched football longer than me. From my respect, if you concede goals like that, you're going to lose games 100%. And I'm not saying, but we don't know. It's ifs and ands, are pots and pans. Newcastle score those goals in games. Competence levels change. It's a different game. Newcastle go on to possibly win, but we don't know. That's not what happened. Newcastle missed the chances. What I'm trying to say is, if you don't score goals in games, you don't win goals. Newcastle had the knack, in the last block of games, of scoring goals and not conceding. They beat Chelsea comprehensively. They beat Manchester United 1-0. They went to PSG and got a 1-1 draw. More or less the same set of players. Then they come to this next block of games. They've had an absolute nightmare. They've lost against Everton. They've lost against. They've lost the next game against Tottenham, and now they've lost and they're out of the Champions League and they're out of Europe. For me personally, 3 completely different blocks of games. We're now entering another block of games. Fulham at home. Then we've got the Chelsea game, which is which is pivotal really in keeping our season alive in a lot of ways, because that just leaves you with the FA Cup if you go out of that. But I still think it's down to a lot of things. I get what you're saying about the midfield, but I didn't think the midfield let us down last night. I think tactically, I think substitutions probably played their part. I think the left-hand side looked weaker for Dan Burn and Isak coming on. I don't know why he took Trippier off. Yes, he's missing this weekend because he's suspended. Was Trippier carrying an injury?
He was supposed to have an injury, Steve.
Because that weekend does for me, Malcolm. I thought when we took off, made that substitution and Trippier went off and Livramento switched to the right, and then we brought Dan Burn on the left and put Isak on the left, which I personally don't think is his strongest position. I think he's a better front player. I just think we lost the momentum, and I think AC Milan went for that like that weaker side. Burns just come back from me. What did you think, Malcolm?
What I don't think that we seem to have is plan B that we can switch to. John, you were certainly strongly hinting towards it. That it's all very well putting Dan Burn on, great, but let's get the defence at work. Let's put a block of midfield players in front and sit back and hold on to what we have. And of course, Newcastle, we have been brilliant at times this season and last of really pushing up to the halfway line. Last night we got somewhat stretched out, and we didn't have quite the discipline that I have seen and witnessed, and I just feel that there's always different stages to a game. And you certainly mentioned it, John, when you were first speaking, that there are those times when you have to say, right, stop the attacking. Because if you remember, against Liverpool, that was so ridiculous in the way the Newcastle were just allowed to freely attack. We were 1-0 up, and we go on all-out attack with 10 minutes of the game left. There's an expression that
to a certain extent, Malcolm, you've been banging on about Liverpool for a while, and you're so right. And to a certain extent, we did it again last night. I mean,
we did it again. Yes.
I love Shaw and his quality going forward. But he's playing a 1-2 in their box, and then nobody's filling the hole where he would normally be, and would get taken to the cleaners on it.
Yes, but do it in the first 80 minutes, by all means. But when it comes to the last 10 minutes, and when you've got something to really hold on to, you say, right, shut the shop. Let's shut the shop, and we don't go giving them an inch in any shape or form.
Shutting the shop, Malcolm, shutting the shop, and this is what I was wanting to express, mate. Shutting the shop doesn't mean in the last 10 minutes you're going, we'll defend with 8 along our 18-yard line and keep it for 1-1.
No, you just tighten the whole thing up.
Yeah, you can do it constructively, still fill the holes, and still have a chance of getting the winner. You're not abandoning all hope of winning.
No, and basically what you're doing is you're ensuring that if the opposition start on an attack, you have got more players than them going towards your penalty area.
Yeah,
you want more players than them, and Newcastle again in the last few minutes got caught and the efforts that players had already put in, you could see that there were on that breakaway of Milan's, that there were 3 Newcastle players, and they just hadn't got the legs to fully get back there.
So you don't take those risks. One of the things
absolutely, John, don't take those risks. Conserve the energy that is left and the fitness, and you make sure you give nothing away. And when it comes to the last 10 minutes of a game and you've got something to defend, you have to be nasty. and I don't see Newcastle being nasty. That
Milan were nasty, Malcolm.
Sorry?
Were nasty. Milan were nasty.
Oh, yes,
they
were.
Fouls when it was necessary, pretending to the referee, oh, I'm terribly sorry, mistimed, wasn't deliberate. Yes, it was. What is interesting is what Steve said, and I agree with Steve, but I take it is we can't score goals. But football is very, very simple, and it almost sounds stupid saying it. But Newcastle's problem at the moment, they can't score goals and they can't stop letting them in. Now, that sounds absolutely silly because, but it is that. We have let 9 goals in the last 3 games. We've been unable to score. You see, life is all about upgrades. Every single player that's in the Newcastle United team now will be up in 2 years' time, will be upgraded. There'll be somebody better bought in, because I still believe in what is happening at Newcastle. I still believe in the manager. I still believe that we're going in the right direction. I still believe it'll turn out right eventually. But every player it's capable of having somebody even better bought. There's no question the Pope is an upgrade on Dubravka. I'm not blaming Dubravka for what's happened, but he doesn't look big enough. He doesn't fill me with confidence. He looks a bit apprehensive. He looks as if he's worried himself. Botman's an upgrade on Lascelles. Lascelles has done great since he come back in the side. He's shown he can pass the ball like he couldn't
guaranteed to make 3 critical mistakes.
Absolutely, Malcolm. Each time he's guaranteed to do that. And Botman's an upgrade on Lascelles, and Pope is an upgrade on Dubravka. We may well say these guys have done good for us, and etc., and they have. There's absolutely no question about that. But I look at the other end of the field, listening to what Steve was saying there, and I tell you what I feel at the moment about the attacking side of the field. I think that Callum Wilson, when he doesn't score goals, doesn't do a lot.
No, he doesn't.
He didn't. They didn't have centre halves, Malcolm, last night. They had 2 of their 3 centre halves not available to them. They had 1 centre half available. We never worked their centre halves. We never. And when Callum has been out for a little while and he comes in, if he's not scoring, he doesn't look as if he's really giving them a torrid time. And if I may say so, Almiron is disappearing off the end of the cliff. He is going back to the fella we saw originally, which was the bloke that couldn't score goals as long, and he went through this purple thing. Yes. Now, I love him for the work rate. I love him for his running. I love him because he plays with a smile on his face. But when he's got no pressure on him, like there isn't a Murphy to say, I'll be in your position on Saturday if you don't do it. When there isn't a Harvey Barnes who could play on the left and you could move Gordon across. When he hasn't got that pressure on him, I mean, for goodness sake, I thought he was dreadful last night, but there's no chance of dropping him on Saturday. Yeah. Who do you put in? So, I mean, we look so short up top. And we relied on Gordon so much and his pace and his willingness and his fitness. He'd come off, he had a little injury last night. What are the alternatives? And at the moment, I look at Newcastle at the moment, Malcolm, and I might be harsh, but why am I harsh? Because I love them to death. And I appreciate everything that has been done by Eddie and the players. They've been above and beyond. They really, really have, and I will never, ever forget that. But we need, in January, we need a new temporary goalkeeper for the rest of the season because we don't have Pope for the rest of the season. We've got to buy a goalkeeper in. We've got to buy a 6 in because unless we get somebody that thinks about defensive situations in the middle of the park, we're struggling. And we've got to get a 9 in because unless we have somebody that covers 9, and we're relying on the fitness of Isaac, who hasn't looked the player he is since he come back in the side, in Wilson, we're in trouble. So there's
sorry, John, with Wilson, what he limits himself to playing. If you extend the width of the 6-yard box all the way up to meet the 6-yard box at the other end, he plays in that area, and he never really goes out of it. at all. When you're playing a side like Milan, you need movement. You need people. You need people to go pulling defenders about, and he was so easy to mark, was Wilson. But
it was easy to mark last night, Malcolm.
I thought one of the Milan defenders was going to start lighting a cigar up.
You see, when I look at that, I'm thinking I talked to one of the Italian reporters before the game last night, and they were terrified about the centre of their defence because they had lost 2 or perhaps 3 of their possible central defenders and only had 1, Tomori, left. And they said, we can be in the biggest trouble there, look, because we haven't got natural centre halves. You wouldn't have thought so. You wouldn't have thought so. We didn't work them. We didn't work the centre of their defence at all.
Not at all. Not at all. But you have to move them about to work them, John.
And we never moved them about.
No.
They were feeling very comfortable. But we got moved about, Malcolm. Positionally, because Shaw's lashing up front and because Bruno's charging into their penalty, all admirable. But it's not when they get the ball and they stick it in the holes you've left.
Yes, that's right.
It's clever then.
Okay, as you can see, it's an emotive subject tonight, and there are plenty of comments coming in as well, which I'll put on the screen.
I'm trying to simmer down here, Steve. It is an emotive subject.
Halfway through the show, we'll give you time to simmer down with the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on Voucher for £20. Don't forget, Supermac and Gibbo do every pre-match at Louis' Liquor Store. It's free entry, children welcome, and there is great food by Fed's Fried Chicken. They're usually on pre-match and sometimes post-match at Louis' Liquor Store. And just a post note of that, the next show at Louis will be on the 13th of January. So a little Christmas break for the lads there. More information coming when we have it. As always, plenty to discuss on the show tonight. And Alan Thompson was in early with his question about Eddie Howe. He says, question by Malcolm and John, the national press want Eddie Howe sacked. How long did the Chronicle give Howe? January the 6th, after another Derby disaster, as the local press will turn and he will be gone. Lots of social media stuff about Jose Mourinho potentially being the next Newcastle manager, and Eddie Howe being booted out. Look, I take this all with a pinch of salt, John. I think he's earned, certainly in his first 2 years at the club, he has earned the right to progress in the hot seat. But this is what happens, unfortunately. A couple of weeks ago, three great results: Manchester United, PSG, and Chelsea. Eddie's going to be manager of the year. Fast forward a month, 3 bad results: Everton, Spurs, and AC Milan. And Eddie's on the brink in the sack race. I mean, it is the way unfortunately, it's this kind of world we live in now, John. Social media is king, and rumors and stories. It is. It's horrendous.
It's absolute knee-jerk. And as I said earlier, the real world is not black and white. And forgive the pun, it's not meant Newcastle United, it's meant colour. The real world's grey. 90% of the world's grey. It's not black and white. And as you say, we beat Chelsea, we beat Manchester United, we beat Arsenal, and it's can we hold on to Eddie Howe when Gareth Southgate makes a mess of the summer, the Euros, and the FA come from to get the England job. Now it's does he get the sack if we'll go out the League Cup against Chelsea, or does he by the time we'll play Sunderland? I think it's ridiculous. My criticism that I've really made tonight, I hope, is constructive. It's certainly said with a huge black and white heart, and it's certainly said because I want us to get better, and I feel we will get better. Will we get a knee jerk off the Saudis, who none of us know personally, so we don't know what to feel inside? But no, I don't think so. It would be incredibly harsh on Eddie Howe to suggest that for any reason whatsoever he is in verge of the sack. Yes, he may need to learn in terms of Europe, because when you go into the elite, you've got to be clever. But I mean, Ferguson and Wenger learned, Cloughy learned, Paisley learned. It took Pep, the greatest manager in the world, X number of years, something like 9, to win the Champions League. It takes time. This man has bought time and has a right to be given time. I must say, having said all that because of the disaster that was AC Milan, we're now faced with a situation whereby inside the next week, so much of Newcastle's immediate future, not long-term future, is going to be decided. If we don't pick up points against Fulham, and then before Christmas teams like Luton and Nottingham Forest, then we are out of the Champions League reckoning from the top 4. Because it's going to be a top 4. It's not going to be a top 5, because Newcastle and Manchester United going out at the group stage is nailed the possibility of England, being given the 5th Champions League place next year. That's not going to happen now. So you've got to finish in the top 4. Unless we pick up max, we are just in the pack chasing the leaders. At the moment, are we going to knock either Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, or Aston Villa, who are doing what we did last year? Are we going to knock them out of the top 4? If we don't get maximum points against Fulham and against Luton and against Nottingham Forest, we're not. Because what's to follow in the new year? Liverpool and Man City. There's always a price to pay. So we need points immediately. And that starts Saturday. And if we don't beat Chelsea away, and when we beat them up here 4-1, I thought we're just going to have to turn out down there and it's all over. Not now. They're not a good side whatsoever. but away from home, neither are we at the moment. Now, we have got, if by next Wednesday we're out of the League Cup and haven't beaten Fulham, then we're effectively going into the new year capable of winning the FA Cup, but not capable of qualifying for Europe. Perhaps if we manage to get results against three average sides, Fulham are better than average, but just, followed by Luton and Nottingham Forest, who are terrible. If we don't have enough points there, yes, we're going to get a big boost in the new year, I believe, because we've got the January transfer market where we can buy into teams. We're also going to be playing, guys, one game a week, because we'll be out of the League Cup and we'll be out of Europe, so we'll be back to what really worked for us last season, which is playing one game a week. So then, no excuse about tiredness and no reason to be tired if we're playing one game a week. And that's what we'll be facing in the new year unless we keep going in the League Cup. We must keep going in the League Cup. But will we keep going in the League Cup? I think in the next few days, Fulham at home and Chelsea away are absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mal, this rumours always going about managers, going in and out. I mean, it's farcical, really, to suggest that Eddie Howe is going anywhere at the moment.
Yes, quite ridiculous. And you talk about Mourinho is the one that's being mentioned. Well, yeah. When Eddie Howe took the Newcastle job, if it had been offered to Mourinho would have laughed and walked away. He wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole. But all the work of Eddie Howe, getting Newcastle into the Champions League in his second season, all of a sudden it seems Mourinho is interested because all this mentioning of him in the papers. Don't tell me he's not ringing up and saying, "Oh, I think I might fancy that job." Yeah,
Malcolm is he's yesterday's man for me. He's yesterday's man.
Mourinho. Sorry, John. What was that?
I said he's yesterday's man for me.
I think so.
He's not today's man or tomorrow's man. He's yesterday's man.
And the game has moved on from Mourinho.
What did he do that was so fabulous at Manchester United or Spurs? It's not. How many trees has he pulled up at Roma? He's the man he was originally when he first come to Chelsea and he won things at Real Madrid and he did this and he did that. He looked progressive. Now he looks as if he's been overtaken by other managers. And I tell you what, if you like attacking football, don't take Mourinho. Because he'll bolt the back door, but he won't open the front door.
Yeah, absolutely right. I just feel that the one thing that Eddie Howe has seriously got to do is, when it needs to be done, change the game on the pitch there and then, and quite separate to that, he needs a plan B. If the game isn't going quite how they expected, then they need to be able to change it to offset whatever the situation is. We can't keep and I go back to the Liverpool game where we were 1-0 up and we just kept attacking, even into the last 10 minutes. And we get caught twice by Liverpool, 3 points out the window. And I think Liverpool's the one club that we really want to kick the backside of.
We do. And of course, away from home, Malcolm, our record, last season, we lost 3 Premier League games away from home all season. Our record away in the Premier League this season is 1-1, drawn 2, and lost 5. Yeah. We've got to get that right. We've got to.
We have, John, and But also, what we haven't discussed here tonight really is the shocking performance at Tottenham.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about the game last night, but for heaven's sake, at Tottenham, I didn't think they were playing that well, in all honesty, but they just kept going at it, and they finished up running riot, really.
Yeah, I didn't want to go for a double depression tonight, Malcolm. To be fair, that's why I didn't. Trying to be optimistic now, and moving on to the wonderful Malcolm McDonald derby at the weekend against Fulham. Two of your ex-clubs going head to head, Malcolm. It's a club that's close to your heart, of course, Fulham. And
absolutely.
They come to St James's Park in a fine state of form.
Well, they are in one hell of a good form at the moment, and I think that it's been a bit of a false league position that they've been holding. That they're improving that dramatically and starting to rise up, but they're scoring a lot of goals. And Newcastle, as John mentioned earlier, in the last 3 games have been letting them pour in, and so that we really are going to have to pull our socks up if we're going to get a good result against Fulham. We really are, and they're very good going forward, and they're talking with people down there at Fulham. There are 2 or 3 players who are very, very surprisingly turning it on for them. The lad up front, is it Jimenez?
Yes, it's Raul Jimenez. It was such a good player, Malcolm, at Wolves, and then got a bad head injury, remember, which sparked him with confidence. All of a sudden, he's got it all back.
That's right. Yeah, and they love him down at Fulham. They are really loving him.
You know what worries me, Malcolm, is, you look at this game and you're right what you're saying about them up front and all that. They come into this game, they've just had 2 5-0 victories. They've just had 2 5-0 victories. They come with that. We have just lost 2 Premier League games, 7 goals conceded, 1 scored, and suffered absolute heartbreak in Europe. So the difference coming into this game is massive. And it's not just the Fulham have won 2 5-0. Yes, they lost the game before that, but they still scored goals. In their last 4 games, they've scored 16 goals. Now, the way I looked at our defence, if Shaw wants to play in their box all day and Lascelles is looking over both his shoulders and Dubrovka's playing like a man that's been absolutely traumatised, never mind what might be happening wide, with Livramento and with no Trippier, then we're in trouble, by the way. We are in trouble if that happens, Malcolm.
You know, Shaw going forward in the way that he did last night and has been doing in earlier games. When you're 1-0 up, you don't want your centre half doing that. Leave it to the guys who are already up there. You know, it's a bit like saying, "Oh, well, I've got to go shopping and I'll leave my front door open."
Sure.
You know?
And be surprised if somebody walks through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you could see that AC Milan, they could see the gap there. They could see the hole, and there was the build up that was literally happening from inside of their penalty area to suddenly explode forward, and well, it left Newcastle players treading water.
What I don't want to do is sound totally doom and gloom, because we're better than that. We're better than the form's been in the last 3 games. We've made huge steps forward. I'm proud of the players and I'm proud of the manager and I'm proud of the ownership in terms of forget politics, in terms of pushing this club on. We must not lose sense of that. But having said that, we must also not lose the situation where we know what the injuries have done to us and we know what our naivety is. And you know the biggest problem, guys, the biggest problem for me as we approach Saturday is it goes without saying we have got to have a positive response. That is an absolute must. But I tell you what, this is a real test of Eddie being able to lift spirits because the players, when they lost at Everton, they'll think, well, we can put that right. We've done that before. And then we lose at Spurs and lose badly, and Song takes us to the cleaners. And we think, but we're coming home. And at home, we're invincible. We've only lost to Liverpool in the league, and we're going to be at St James's, and we get legs. The crowd give us so much. And for the first half, it was exactly like that. But then suddenly we lose then as well. And we're now facing a situation where we're behind the front runners in the league. We're out of Europe totally. From being at half time in the Champions League last 16, we're not in Europe at all. And the dreadful deflation of us, what does Eddie say to pick us up? After we lost at Spurs, he says he can say, but we're at home. And at home, and I was saying this as well. I believe this. We're at home. So we're at home. We get extra impetus. We get a lift. We've got the crowd. We'll be okay. We're at home. And then all of a sudden, we're not okay. So you can't say we're at home against Fulham, so everything's automatically okay. You can't say, well, we've been unlucky with injuries, but, we're a good side. We've just lost 3 and let a shipload of goals in. And what does he say to... And by the way, he's got to lift himself before he lifts a team, because he must feel dread. He must feel, the whole world's against us. Lady Luck, they've got divorced. I mean, they were a bit estranged, but they're now divorced, like us and Lady Luck. So what happens now? He's got to lift himself, then lift the players, make players believe he could give them something to cling on to before the game with AC Milan. We're home again after 2 bad away defeats. But now he's got to give them something else. And this isn't a game to motivate you like, well, we'll beat one of the top teams, because in theory, Fulham on the top team. So how does he lift them against that? And unless we beat Fulham, what sort of attitude will we have going to Chelsea, which is a killer game? So this is massive for me, and it is a test greater than a lot of people realize. Under normal circumstances, we would view, like last season, Fulham at home and say, that's 3 points and we start qualifying for Europe again. No, it ain't. It ain't like that. And I'm not being depressive. I am so hopeful that we get the right result and that lifts us. Because if we got tanked against Fulham, and I'm not suggesting we will for one moment, but if we did, how would we go to Chelsea?
Yeah. And then they are a much improved side over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, but we did whop them 4-1 at home, Mal.
Yeah, we did. Yes, and when we did that, Steve, when we did that, I thought we're in the semi-final of the League Cup already, because we were so superior to them, and they aren't an elite side whatsoever. But neither were Bournemouth, and neither were Everton.
Yeah,
who were both away from home.
Everton beat Chelsea as well, though. So look, I think if you let your standards drop in the Premier League, anybody beats anybody, and it doesn't matter whether you're top of the table or bottom of the table. If you turn up on the day and the other team doesn't, you're going to get a result. So, I think it's.
But we haven't been getting a result away from home, Steve.
No. This is the one. This is the one thing that you can't defend Eddie Howe and the lads on. The results away from home have been poor. So far this season, that and we agree on that 100%. The stats don't lie. they need to rectify that. So
our best chance, Steve, our best chance of beating Chelsea is to beat Fulham.
our best chance of silverware is to beat Chelsea, I think, this season, as always. Carabao Cup, and then we need a decent draw in the semi if we can get through. But the Fulham game, Kieran Trippier's out, of course. He serves a one-match suspension after reaching 5 Premier League bookings. We've now got 3 other players who were all 1 yellow card away from suffering a similar fate. Joe Linton, Sean Longstaff and Jamal Lascelles all run the risk of being suspended if they get a booking on Saturday. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday, of course. As for Fulham, early team news, well, Tim Ream remains out. No news yet on the fitness of Willian, Diop and Traore. We'll find out probably a little bit more about that tomorrow. But as we've already mentioned, they arrive on Tyneside after back-to-back 5-0 wins. Nottingham Forest and West Ham, both the victims of 2 comprehensive professional performances by Fulham. The form away from Craven Cottage isn't really that impressive. They've just had 1 win, a 1-0 success at Everton on the opening day of the season. But they have had draws at Arsenal, Palace and Brighton. The lost games at Man City, Spurs, Aston Villa and Liverpool. 16 of the 26 goals they've scored in the Premier League so far this season have come during their most recent 4 games, with no less than 9 different players on target during their recent purple patch. This game isn't on TV, and don't forget that the food bank will be shaking their buckets outside the ground, and Jamie Rubin will be matching all cash donations. Referee this weekend is Sam Barrett. That's a new name to us. He's 30 years of age. He's from Yorkshire. He refereed his first Premier League game just 2 months ago, which was again a Fulham game. Fulham 3, Sheffield United 1. Saturday will only be his 8th game in charge of a Premier League fixture. He switched to being a referee, actually, after a serious injury halted his playing career at Halifax Town. VAR, which is often switched off, is Michael Salisbury. So let's get your predictions on this one first, Malcolm.
This is going to be a very difficult game, I think, for Newcastle. One thing that does greatly worry me is, are they going to be fit enough for a 90-minute match, having played in midweek? And from what I've seen of late, I'm having doubts. I was talking to. I was talking to a couple of ex-players earlier on today, and I said to them, "But we used to love playing 2 games a week. If we didn't have a midweek game, it was a long, boring week of constant training, nothing but training, And what you have to remember is that we used to play on absolute crap pitches, and what the players of today have, gee whiz, it's like playing on silk, and so why is there this tiredness from 2 games a week? I don't understand it. What is it they're not doing in training, or what is it that they're doing more in games than we used to do, because they've got such lovely pitches to play on now. They're not having to drag boots out of muddy pitches as we used to do to trying to get a sprint up, and so I don't know, but Newcastle, they need to really take a big, deep look at themselves in a mirror and say, right, come on, we're pretty much down to bare bones, and we've got to get out there, fight, scrap, and we've got to stay organised as well, which I think you like the centre half going up attacking in the last few minutes. It's just not on for me. Particularly when you got something to hold on to, and so I'd like to see a little more discipline. I would also like to see that ability that when things change in a game, you need just to change your tactics somewhat, and I want to see more positive changes made by the manager and his coaches in terms of securing results for Newcastle, and particularly in tight games. And last night it was a tight game until the last few minutes, and Milan got carried away, similarly to Liverpool earlier in the season. And I just don't want to see that happening again.
Forecast, Malcolm. Forecast.
I really am having difficulty with this one. I think it's going to be pretty tight, and I'm going to take Newcastle to win 2-1, and I've just got that horrible feeling that Fulham could make me look a total idiot.
And Tuesday night's prediction, Mal, against Chelsea in the Cup?
I think that's going to be a draw, 1 each.
But it can't be.
It's going to go to penalties.
No, I know, but then it goes to penalties, and who knows, But
Right.
but for the game itself, I see it as a draw. Yes, okay, so then we go to penalties. It's a shame because I think it's an awful way to get there, particularly into a semi-final. But that's the way it goes now.
Okay, Gibbo.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. I think this game on Saturday is not about what we've talked about for weeks. It's not about tiredness. It's not about how tired are Newcastle, how limited are we in shuffling a pack. It's mental. It's totally mental because I think when Eddie Howe looks in the eyes of every single player an hour before kickoff, he'll know deep down whether we win or not. Because they either fancy it or they don't. They're either destroyed and decimated by the bad luck they've had recently, in which case they're going to have their backsides taken out, or they're going to be saying, hey, come on, this separates a man from the boys, and we all.
Yeah. And John, I bet there's people who listen to you saying that who would say, "No, it can't be like that. Surely, no, don't believe it." But it is like that.
It is, Malcolm. I'm certain you've been in that press.
An hour before a game, you can look into the eyes of a player, and I remember one very clear incident. And I should have done something about it, and I didn't. And for me, it was a lesson learned. But it was when we went to QPR with a plastic pitch, and one of my players, his eyes were flickering about too much. He wasn't able to look straight at me. And
he didn't fancy it. He didn't fancy it.
You don't fancy it today.
Honestly, you say, what's the result going to be? I could justify saying win, lose, or draw. I say win because we've got the crowd, because we need it, because of players are men and not boys. They realise this is the start of all or nothing. I can take a draw because I can forecast a draw because Fulham will be difficult. And I can forecast a defeat because we're low in the snake's belly right now. And if that doesn't change in the next 48 hours, 24 hours, we're in deep, deep trouble. And by the way, what will we do with Chelsea? For me, it depends totally on what we do against Fulham. Lose against Fulham and we'll go out. Beat Fulham and we've got a good chance of getting through. The Chelsea result will depend on what we set up on Saturday. Saturday is anybody's guess. I'm going for a win. You know why? 2 reasons. Because I'm a Newcastle fan, because I didn't contemplate anything else. Because if we don't win, we're in deep trouble going into the new year. And yes, we'll sign this, we'll sign that. We're only playing once a week, off we'll fly. We'll be so far behind unless we get wins against inferior opposition. We'll be so far behind the Premier League, we won't catch up and we'll be left with the League Cup. This is going to decide everything. I'm taking Newcastle to win because I don't want to contemplate anything else. It's not based on what my eyes have told me. Over the last 3 games, my eyes have told me I should panic like there's no tomorrow. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take us to win and then go on to Chelsea in a better frame of mind. You know why? Because I don't even want to contemplate anything else.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 1-1 against Fulham, and I'm going to go for a narrow 2-1 win against Chelsea. So that's my predictions for this week. We will see what the week brings, and we will be back next Thursday, gents. Have a good week. Thanks, as always, for joining us, and thanks to everybody in the chat for watching. Take care, guys.
All right, have a good weekend, everybody. Enjoy your football.
All the best.